Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members and guests. As you know, this is February the 17th, 2025, and this is a regular meeting of the West Shore Photography Club. Let me say I had a great trip and I'm glad to be back. It's been a long time since I've seen some of you folks. It is quite a testament to the club and to a few individuals that I can leave for 2 months at a time and you guys don't miss a beat. So I want to thank Joe, Mark Albano, Mark Corchado, and the other directors and everybody else who kept things going in my absence. So thank you very much. I'm very, very proud of what everybody's been doing. We have an image review tonight, but before we get to that, let's go to Jean for a report on the trips.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see everyone. Dennis, welcome back.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. Last week on the 8th, uh, some of us, not many, but a few of us braved the storms and went down to Strasburg Railroad. And Mark, do you want to say a few words about that?
Sure. Like you said, we went to the Strasburg Railroad. We had 8 people, a very light turnout, 5 of which were photographers. Jean helped up the ante with a couple of her friends. Uh, I don't think anybody stayed a particularly long time. I might have been one of the last to leave, and I lasted till just about noontime. Some people did go over and, like Jean, go over and take pictures of the steam locomotive. Um, it was lightly attended, but also there was the threat of snow that afternoon too, which I think um, made the turnout even lighter than it probably could have been. That's it.
Yeah, it was a shame that the weather didn't do what it was supposed to do because
Yeah.
we could have stayed longer. I'm sure more people would have came out. Let's see. So next week we have the state library, and that's on Tuesday. So make sure you ask off from work if you are still working. And it is going to be a really nice visit over there. The decorations and the architecture are in the Art Deco period. And I found it fantastic. And of course, all of the books and newspapers. And Joe will be helping to lead that. And he has a couple tips and tricks for us all. So I'm anxious to hear those. And then the librarian will give us a small lecture on the history of the library itself. So I think that would be a really nice trip for everyone. And in March, we have the Gordonville Mud Sale on the 8th, and then the cathedral, the St. Patrick's Cathedral in Harrisburg. And we'll be doing that as a group. Mary and Elaine will be leading that. But if anybody wants to stick around, the St. Patty's parade will be around 2 o'clock. That is not going to be an official, that's just an aside, if anybody wants to stay for that. I just have two little notes that I wanted to express. When we give out the times on our emails for our trips, that's usually just a suggestion. If a venue wants us out by a certain time, we will most certainly make a note of that on the emails going out to you all. And then the other thing is the Middle Creek Snow Geese, unfortunately, has been canceled. And I'm going to let Joe talk about that, and then he can go right into any notes that he wants to make about the library trip as well.
The Snow Geese has been closed. The Middle Creek has been closed down because of the bird flu, and that's it. There's really nothing else, and we just can't go. It's not safe to go either. And then on the state library, you covered it all. So there's nothing extra to talk about there.
Okie dokie. All right, back to you, Dennis.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Uh, hopefully you saw my email from a couple of days ago, where I had a very special, exciting announcement to make about a new Smug Mug account that the club now has. So there's a special meeting, hopefully you'll be able to attend on Wednesday, February 26th. Elaine will be uh, hosting that meeting and talking all about the website. I want to thank Elaine that she's done a great job on putting this together. Took a lot of research and a lot of time. It's beautiful, and I think you'll love it. Be a great opportunity for us. So that'll be a special meeting online on Zoom. Another email will go out to remind you with the link to the meeting. Our next online meeting will be in 2 weeks. That's Monday, March the 3rd. Joe, would you comment about our guest speaker for us?
Yeah, that's Jay Cohen. He's from the New York area, Connecticut. And this is going to be a rather interesting session. He's going to be in New York City, and he's going to see a building. And he's then going to say, I think I'm going to photograph that. He'll walk over and try and get a good vantage point of the building. And he'll take a picture of the building. And then you look at it and say, that looks really crappy. He got all this stuff in there. He's going to say, no, 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 you just wait. And then he's going to process that image and it's going to turn into a beautiful work of art. So it's going to be very instructive for how to not be photographing what you're seeing, but what you're feeling. And it's going to be a little combination of all of that. So that's going to be really exciting. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Okay, we have a image review tonight. The Eagles wizard, Mike Donovan, is going to review 13 images for us. So I will turn the meeting over to Mike at this point. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Can everyone hear me?
I
Yes.
can.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to leave it at this because when I went full size, I got a notice that my screen sharing was paused. So I'm just going to go right from here instead of fooling around. And also, if when I'm finished with one of the images and I say, who is the photographer? And you start talking without unmuting yourself, you owe me $5.
Good
So
luck collecting.
we'll go with that. That's why I wanted to be sure everyone could hear me, so I didn't owe myself $5. Okay. As Dennis said, we have 13 images, and I went with 6 different headings. I went with technical, composition, color, processing, and intangibles, which is really another way of saying wow factor or the feelings that it gives you or whatever. And then I'll finish with suggestions of ideas that I have that you might want to try. So the first one, there we go. The first one is called broken symmetry. Broken symmetry. And one thing I also try to do is recommend a photographer for you to see that relates to what you've done. And this one is a woman named Erin Babnick, Erin and Babnik, Erin Babnick. All right, technically, this, as you can see, is super clean. Really, really nice detail. The focus is sharp. It's not noisy at all. Technically, I would call it very strong. Composition wise, we have a tree line that leads to the boat. And if you're familiar with the rule of thirds, suggestion of thirds, law of thirds, you see that the rowboat sits on the right vertical in the law of thirds. And that's called where the 2 lines cross. It's like a big tic-tac-toe screen. Where the 2 lines cross, some people call that a PowerPoint or a point of interest. You're below that and above the bottom one, which is fine. Your composition looks strong, I think. The horizontal lines, which would be the water line, the tree line, the reflection of the tree line, you probably know horizontals promote peacefulness and calm, which is perfect for this. It looks like there's a lot on the left and not so much on the right, but compositionally, they're pretty equal. If you think about the amount of trees on the left, the amount of trees on the right, it's pretty well balanced. So I would say your composition was well balanced. You have a point of interest. You use the reflections. Normally, I would say, well, you don't always want to split things right through the middle, but the boat takes care of that issue. As far as the color goes, you use the blue and orange complementary color scheme, which is always a strong one. The warm and the cool is a great contrast. It really draws attention. In this case, the warm colors seem to take the center stage. The cool colors seem to provide the peace. And one other thing is that generally warm colors try to advance and cool colors try to fall back. This looks almost the opposite. And one of the reasons for that is there's so much strong blue that it's actually coming to us. And you also might notice I talk about values, and values means the brightness. If you remember the Ansel Adams 10 different layers of black and white, this you can apply to the color. So you see in the middle, the water has a very, very light value, and then it drops to a deeper value. Well, the light values want to come toward you. That's why the boat jumps out. The lighter values want to come toward you. The colors are rich. The processing is smooth and clean. As far as intangibles go, it's peaceful, it's calm, it's a feeling of relaxation. And that's if that's what you were going for, you got it for sure. Now, any suggestions? I personally would back off on the boat just a bit because it really jumps because it's probably one of the lightest values in the image. So it flies out at you. Part of the reason is because of the contrast that's provided with the dark background. So maybe you want to either lighten up on the background, on the shadow a little bit, or just the tiniest bit knock off the edge of the boat. The edge meaning the brightness, just a bit, so that the boat recedes a little bit and becomes more part of the image. So either open the shadows on the right a little bit, maybe ease off on the boat just a little bit so it's not jumping off the screen. But all in all, you did a good job. The composition's really, really good. Now, who did the image? Oh man, I take checks also.
Yeah. It's Doug Cinnamon. I don't think he's on board tonight.
Okay. All right, let's go on then. Fishing for a living. I hope that I'm correct in that this is a Southeast Asian scene. So as a result, the photographer I'm recommending is Trung Pham, Trungpham, a photographer from that area who documents Southeast Asia mainly. Technically, again, a clean image, not noisy, not dirty in any way, not spotted, no dust spots. A great, great image, sharp. The exposure is really good because when you look closely, you can see detail in the hat and in most of the shorts that they're wearing. So there's a definite, it's not just strictly silhouette. There's some activity, some detail in the people as well as in the rest. You can see, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay. You can see here, I talked about value. The value of this is a little bit lighter than the value of this. So as a result, it stands out a little bit more. Same thing over here, here. So that's what I mean by value. Now, the value of the sky is way, way, way lighter than the value of, say, the rock. So you can, when especially with black and white, you can move things forward and backward by adjusting their values. Composition wise, the repeated verticals are really, really good. You can see triangles, and some people call that repeated shapes or rhythm. You can see there's quite a good rhythm. Um, the hats are a nice contrast to the sharpness of the rest of the image. Let's see. I have also, oh, I know. The spaciousness on the right is balanced by the busyness, I'm sorry, the spaciousness on the left is balanced by the busyness on the right. So it might look heavy to the right, but it really isn't. There's probably just as much of this value over here as there is over here. So it'll provide a balance. Really nice composition. I really do like that. Now, one of the things I want to cover is color. And initially, I thought this probably is a black and white, but as I look, I'm seeing green and I'm seeing like a pinkish red, which actually, whether the photographer tried it or not, it does provide a good warm and cool contrast. So we're cooler down here, warmer up here. And again, the law of thirds, the rule of thirds, I know people say, wow, the rules are made to be broken. That's true, but they do help. They do help. You can see this horizon line here is straight. It does help for sure. The processing is really nice. There's details in the dark area. The sky provides an absolutely perfect backdrop for the activity that's going on. Intangibles, it's always great to be immersed in another culture. It's wonderful. It's full of action, it's full of activity, and these guys are at work. So it's kind of cool to have a little view into that. As far as suggestions go, really the only thing that I can suggest is I would take care of this right here. What happens is when you work your way, sorry, Joe, I saw you flinch. When you work your way around the edge and you come to something like this, it'll stop you. And we want to go here because this is all great, full of action, full of activity, really a nice image, really. But that's my only suggestion. Joe, is that you?
Yes, that is Mike.
All right.
And I actually didn't see that dot until just this evening, and I knew you were going to nail me on it.
I understand.
And you
Sorry.
should, and you should. This is called stilt fishing, and it is in the southern coastal region of Sri Lanka. And I spent quite a bit of time there photographing, like you said, the culture, and it's really fascinating. What it is those are poles, sticks, trees, they stick in the ground and they're really close to land. You can almost see some of the rocks in the foreground there. So it's very shallow water. They crawl up into there and they have a fishing pole and they fish and they carry that little basket you can see on the back of them is where they put their fish that they catch. And it's a very ancient kind of a thing. And some of these guys, these are all men, I believe, are there to fish for their families, and others they just they catch the fish and throw them back because they just want to get their picture taken. And so that's what it is.
Okay. I like also the long shutter speed. It makes this really creamy in here.
Yes.
That's nice.
Thank you, Mike, for doing that, and I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, the view from Central Park. There's a New York City photographer named Evan Joseph. You may want to look at whoever did this one. EVAN and then Joseph. Technically, your exposure is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. There's detail on the tree trunk. There's detail in the buildings. There's detail in the sky. Really nice job with the focus and the exposure. Very, very good. You have a couple different lights and darks here, but you managed to get interest into all of them. Composition wise, you have heard me say before, vertical lines promote strength and power, which is why the old timey banks always had those big pillars in the front. They didn't need them, but it showed stability and strength and gave people confidence to take their money there. The repetition of shape is first and foremost here. Um, Repetition of shape is also called rhythm, as I mentioned before. It's kind of cool to have the man-made versus the natural. And you can see immediately who makes the angles and the straight lines it isn't nature. Nature's a little bit messy up there in the front, and the back is all graphic and geometric. Tons of rectangles. You did good grabbing those. The natural framing is really nice. The trees on either side balance each other. The trees on the bottom balance each other. That gives you good depth. When you have something in the foreground, you can drop to the city in the background and to the sky all the way back. So that gives you good depth. That's a good job there. But again, the warm and the cool, it's so prevalent. And if you don't really think about color, you don't notice it. But even with these man-made buildings, you have the cool blue and the cool green and the warm orange and the warm yellow, and they play against each other. It makes the cool colors cooler, the warm colors warmer. So real good use of color there. And your colors are rich. Back in the day, of course, before my time, I can't remember this myself, but people used to use slide film. And most of the time, you would underexpose your slide film by a third of a stop. That made the colors richer. And that's what this kind of reminds me of. The colors are rich and beautiful. So good work there. Let's see. He took advantage of the world's biggest softbox, which is a cloudy sky. Everything looks great there. Let's see, intangibles. The viewpoint that you chose puts us all right there in Central Park. And that's kind of cool. I can almost picture somebody standing there taking the picture. So I like that. And I also like the juxtaposition of the old buildings and the new buildings. That's also kind of cool. You have old and new, old and new. Very, very nice work there too. As far as suggestions go, I'd like you to take a look at this crop right here. I'm not sure when you hit a corner like that, when you take pictures of people, they tell you to avoid cutting them off at a joint, at a knee or an elbow or something, because the eye doesn't want to complete the image. And the same here. So if you have a little extra space up on top, try a crop that lets this breathe. And if not, if you come back up any further, I totally understand. But that's a suggestion I would try. And one other thing, I would try without the crane and see what you think of that. Now, I realize the crane says this is a new building and this is an old building. If that's what you're going for, let it there. That's why these are called suggestions. So I think that's all I have to suggest is eyeballs on the crop here and check out the crane with or without. Okay? Who did this one?
Hi, this is Elaine Shook. This is mine.
Hi,
And
Elaine.
Mike, I knew right away you were gonna say something about that crop because that is it's actually the thing that bugged me most about this image. And unfortunately, I didn't crop this photo. A very little bit on the bottom and off the left side, but
Okay.
that's actually the way I shot the building. And I'm sorry I didn't notice that as I was shooting it, but that's the way it was. Um, this image is actually one of my favorite views of the city from inside of Central Park. This day I was walking around Central Park for several hours, and this happened to be the last view that I saw as I was exiting the park on this day. Um, Lighting was perfect.
Mhm.
Um, and I do tend to purposely underexpose my photos, which is
Mm.
why the colors are intense. But I didn't have to do much in terms of exposure adjustments at all. The cloud cover did it all for me. It was beautiful. What I like most about this image and why I uploaded it is because I am primarily a nature photographer, but I have a serious interest in architecture as well. And this image just kind of blends those two passions for me
Yeah.
very beautifully. And I also do love that contrast between the old and the new. So those are the two things that really drew me to this view from the beginning.
Well, what's nice is what drew you to the view is what you captured.
Mike, are we allowed to ask a question of Elaine?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Elaine, I noticed that the building, the receding in the middle, that you have a very open space, a little open space to separate those two buildings together. And
Mhm.
I love that myself. And was that hard to get that in there or?
I assure you it was not intentional.
Um,
I did notice it after I took the shot and started working it, but it was luck.
Okay, I love that.
Well, it is perfect because you have a warm, cool
Hmm.
tension there. So yeah. Okay. The Mummers Parade Band can never have too many horns. Now I looked and looked for somebody who specialized in mummer photography, and I didn't come up with anybody. So I'm sorry I have no recommendations for this. However, I do say, as with the previous shot, your colors are really rich, a really slight underexposure. I'm I'm guessing, or maybe you had to do that because of the tuba, because of the whiteness, but it really looks good. A lot of detail showing, rich colors. Your exposure is excellent. Focus as well. Composition wise, a lot of, no pun intended, rhythm, meaning repeated shapes, a lot of curves, which play off well against the sharpness of the gate there, the fence in front of them. All the angles and the straight lines play against all the curves, which is really nice. The other thing that's kind of cool about that is they relate in color. The gold and the gold of the wood and the gold of the trombones relate, but they're opposites in form. So that's kind of cool. I like the folds of the cloth mimicking the curves of the horns. So it's kind of a unit. It's a secure unit there. Um, the one tuba, not the one tuba, the tuba. I talked before about the rule of thirds, the big tic-tac-toe thing. Well, this is right smack on where they cross. And that's one reason that it looks so prevalent to your eye. Our eye tends to want to go from bottom left, which here's a good starting point, to top right, and here's a good ending point. So composition wise, you got it going there. You really do. It looks great. Color wise, of course, red is always exciting. The color red stands for excitement. And Again, the warm and cool, which we got right here. And really, if you take anything away from tonight in color photography, if you look for a warm and a cool coming together or being close, you're going to see a strong contrast. This will look bluer because of this. This will look yellower because of this. It really does work that way. Let's see. The yellow of the horns, the yellow of here, I already talked about. Processing, I talked about the nice rich colors. There's nothing really totally blown out, which before we started, we talked about that elusive white ink, of which there is none in your printing, in your printer. So if anything is pure total white with no detail, your paper is going to be showing. Let's see. The one suggestion I might have is your crop here is a little tight. And this is where we're starting. So maybe a little more breathing room here. Let me see. Other suggestions I have. I would darken this. I don't like it fighting with this value. This is strong. So we don't need this conflicting. Just darken it a little. You don't have to wipe it out or anything. Same here. Darken this a little bit. And I think I would get rid of this, because the eye travels all the way around, or it should anyway. But really, you got excitement there. You got the red going. You have organized chaos. The dark background is beautiful. My suggestions are to loosen the crop, darken these values, and I think you'll be good to go. I like it. Who did this one?
That's mine, Mary Eileen Carson.
Well, there's more to the story.
Well, that was from the, we went to the Mummers Parade. We hadn't been there in years. And so this past New Year's Day, we were there at the Mummers Parade. And I started becoming fascinated with the bands. They usually the mummer groups, well, certain mummer groups bring their own music. They're their own musicians. But I believe this was from the Wenches, and they don't play any instruments as mummers. So they have flatbed trucks that come along with all these musicians to play the music that they dance to. And so I couldn't always get a good shot of the flatbed trucks because that's not the focus. They kind of put them to the side. But where they located this one, I got a few good shots of this band, and I just loved how all those horns going crazy.
Organized chaos.
Yes, yes.
Yep. Very nice.
Thank you. And thank you for the suggestions.
You're welcome. Deck the halls with ice. I'm going to suggest, I've suggested this photographer before, and it's Angie McMonigal. McMonigal. She does a lot of black and white abstract stuff. So I think you'll enjoy her work if you like doing this kind of thing. Technically, you can see the focus is pretty sharp. There's no black block-ups, no white burnouts. The textures have been captured, especially there on the deck. That's really nice. Composition-wise, you got the strong verticals, the repeated shapes. And what's kind of cool is, I don't know if you tried this or not, but you've got a really nice path for the eye to follow all the way back, and the same thing to the right of this one, to the right of this one. So it gives a little room, a little breathing room. It gives room for the eye to move, for the eye to follow. And the curve of this fights against all these straight lines, which is nice. It's a nice juxtaposition, so to speak. The color's not really applicable here because black and white was a good choice. And black and white is usually a good choice if you want to emphasize lines and shapes. And that's what just this image does, emphasizes lines and shapes. The processing, again, I said the black and white is a good choice. Intangibles. When you look out the window and you see this, I'm not sure calm and quiet and peaceful is the first thing that comes to mind. It's usually where's the shovel or where's the salt. But this seems calm and peaceful, and the repetition of lines, the rhythm has to do with that. Let's see. A couple of suggestions. One is try to pump up the contrast just a little bit. It will lighten your ice and snow. It will darken this a little. Don't go crazy with it, but see if you can get a little more pop into it, and that'll give you more depth. Part of the issue that you're having is with depth is this value is darker than this. No, I'm sorry. This is a little bit lighter than this. So, as I said, dark likes to recede, light likes to advance. So you're kind of fighting each other there. And I would also remove this right here. The nails, they belong. I'm not finicky enough to take stuff out that is holding this together. So maybe you want to get rid of this right here. But I do like I said, I like the curve of the walkway. I like the repetition here, which the rhythm goes to here. You have a foreground, a middle ground, a background. Those are my only two suggestions. Who did this one?
Thanks, Mike. This is Rod Frazier.
Is this your backyard?
It's my deck. So yeah, it was from the first ice storm we had a couple of weeks ago, and I just looked out there and I just noticed all the lines. I said, hey, that's kind of cool. I ought to get a picture of it.
Yep, it is cool.
And so I did. I removed a couple of distractions, but not the one you mentioned.
Well, you remove the ones you think are distractions, not the ones I tell you necessarily.
Yes.
One thing I forgot to mention is when I was talking about this pathway here, this diagonal helps with that. It helps you know that this is a way out, which is kind of cool. One diagonal in all these straight lines. Very nice.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Abandonment. I'm going to suggest a photographer whose name I'll have to spell. His name is Craig Varjabedian. He's from, I believe, Colorado. Craig, you can spell Varjabedian is Varjabedian. Now, I tried putting their names on these areas, but it was too distracting. I didn't like it. I didn't want to take away from your work. Technically, this is beautiful. Sharp, detailed, no blowouts. Even on the side of the face, there's a little bit of detail. There's one teeny tiny little blowout, but it still has color. It's not totally white. The wide angle effect is just tremendous here. Tremendous. I know there's people who would say, well, the building's crooked. Well, that's one of my favorite things because this leans this way, this leans that way, and it's pointing heavenward. I mean, it's composition-wise, it's really, really strong. I like the triangles. Got one here. Have one over here. Have one here. Not his head, but the background there. Really, really nice. As far as the headstone is a perfect balance to all this. It's a perfect balance. The rectangles and the angles play against the curves of the statue, We have all kinds of lines, all kinds of angles, and all kinds of curves. It picks up a little bit right here in the doorway, but I like the contrast of the two. I really do. Let's see. Again, I said they point to a vanishing point in the sky. There's a really slight tension here. Really slight, so that's pretty cool. Color, again, we have the warm and the cool, and that makes a great contrast. It adds a lot of depth when the cool color falls away and the warm color advances. Very nice there. You have the orange and blue, but you also have the green and the red complementary color scheme. So they each bring out each other. Processing. I looked carefully, and I think you're going to want to try to fight with some halos. You have some halos running here. You have some here and along this side. You can get rid of those. You can, sometimes halos appear because of over sharpening. I don't know what software you're using, but the software called On One has what's called a chisel tool, and it actually pulls off layers of pixels so you can actually chisel that away. So do a little homework and see about how to get rid of those halos. Maybe you're just over sharpened and it'll be a simple thing. It's haunting. The abandonment, I like the title. It's almost a double meaning. The church is abandoned. Somebody may think their faith has abandoned them. This is out in the middle of nowhere, abandoned. Really, really cool title. As far as intangibles go, I said it's haunting, it's sad. The title has a couple meanings. So my suggestions are, let's just block that out, that little spot there. That'll disappear in no time. And look for halos, maybe on the mountains and maybe here. And I couldn't decide if this was a halo or if this was part of the roof. But once you get rid of those, it's a fabulous image, and hopefully that'll help. So that's really a really nice job. It goes from a photograph to a story, and that's always great. Okay, who did this? Someone's not here, or they owe me $5.
It's Joan Smith, and she is online. Joan? Let me see if I can ask her to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I don't know what button I hit here on my laptop. It took the picture away, but there is a story here, Mike, and you've actually hit most of the highlights of it. I grew up way out in the country in northern Pennsylvania. This church and is actually a shrine to this saint, Saint John Newman. And this church was built in the 1800s. This saint would rode his horse from Philadelphia to this village to consecrate or whatever, or bless the shrine, to bless the church. Prior to that, there were no churches in that area. So as a kid, my mother would force us to go to look at this church with all the religious meanings and the saint and everything. So I grew up with this church as a beautiful church with if cemeteries can be nice, a nice cemetery and everything, very historical. So this was taken about 10 years ago. And when I went back, I said, I've got to go back to that church. When I went back to the church, I found it in this horrible condition. And I think that this picture kind of shows you how sad I was, how, I don't know, it just made me so uneasy and so sad that this was the condition that this place had gotten to. This is actually now in the middle of a cow pasture.
Oh my gosh.
So all around this church and graveyard are cows grazing. So that was a little bit unnerving. The tombstones were all knocked, most of them were knocked over and broken. But the statue was still there. And I think that was about it. Since then, they have gone in and they've redone the interior of the church, but they haven't done much with the outside.
Huh.
But anyway, that's the story. I had my wide angle lens on because I'd been out doing landscapes. And like I said, this was about 10 years ago with an older camera, like a Nikon D7000. So I'm not sure, maybe that's the reason for the halos. I didn't really even sharpen it. I didn't run it through sharpening
Okay.
software or anything, but I will take care of those, and I know how to take care of those halos. So
Well, you got the sad feeling for sure. You captured what you started out to get.
good, good.
And there's a couple high schools called Bishop Newman. Is that the same person?
You know what? I don't know. I am not from this area originally.
Okay.
It could very well be. If I Googled a little bit more of the history of it, and if you Google St. John Newman, there is a church, I believe, in Philadelphia named that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, this church has quite a history. And at that point in time, I was thinking about doing a book on churches and with my photos. But then as time went by, I realized so has everybody else done a book on churches. So I kind of put that by the wayside. But with the winter and the cold, I've been really bored and going back through some old photos. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do something with this.
Yeah. Nice work with the sadness for sure.
Thanks. Okay, let's all cheer up. I hope the next photo is like a flower or something.
No, you're good.
Okay, I just have one question, Mike. How
Yes.
do you feel about the crop on the right? I almost cropped that into like an 8x10. This is a 4:6, I think, ratio. I almost cropped that into an 8x10 because I thought there was too much space on the right.
You could probably pull in on the right because there's nothing there that you're losing that doesn't exist over here.
Right. My only concern with that was if I would do that, I would unbalance the picture. I thought that the left bottom would be a little bit too heavy if I didn't have enough on the right with the light coming in.
Well, the other thing is your story's so strong, and part of the reason is because to me, the headstone looks lonely.
Okay.
You know, it's like a lonesome feel. And try your crop idea and see if you lose that open, empty, lonesome feeling.
Gotcha. Okay. The other thing, and I don't know if you noticed this, you kind of have to zoom in a little bit, but this always makes me feel bad is when there's a lock on the door of a church.
I see it. Yeah.
And, you know, if you really look closely, it's like, oh man, that's horrible.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you can remove that.
I know, but I think that adds to it. I mean, if you really look at it and you think
Yeah.
about the title and everything, and
Yep, you're right.
and what's happening in the world today and stuff, it's kind of revealing.
Yep, you have a story there, and that's part of what art does.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mike, can I make a comment on that?
Yep.
Yeah, you know, I really like the image as well, and I don't usually comment as we go along. I would argue strongly against cropping anything on the right. The light is just fabulous for those clouds, and it hits the statue, I
Yeah.
think, just so
Yep.
dramatically. If you reduce an inch of it, I think you're going to lose a lot of drama there.
And it's throwing shadows too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is that David?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought I recognized your voice. Thank you, David. The other thing I noticed too was the way the light was hitting the church. And
Mhm.
you don't really notice that until you start really looking at it. But that light is also kind of lighting that church up just a little bit. And
Yeah.
I was afraid if I took too much out, it would be like, okay, where's that light coming from? know,
Yeah, true.
Where's that light and shadow coming from? Because it takes quite a bit of light to light that church up, and that sun was coming down. So
And the beauty of it is you have the last word.
you bet. I thought, oh my God, they're either going to love or hate this. The
I
statues,
like it.
the statues in the middle, which I never put my subject in the middle usually, but there was no way I could crop this and get him to the left or to the
No.
right without losing
No.
a lot.
And the tension of the church against his head, and
Yeah.
on both sides, actually, you don't even realize it's the middle.
Right. And I sort of had to sneak on the property. So it was kind of like, you know how you feel when you sneak on somebody's property to take a picture? It's like, is somebody watching me? Or, you're a little nervous, and don't take too long. And I know that sounds terrible, but probably we've all done it.
Well, I wouldn't know anything about that, so.
Okay. Well, forget I even said that.
Okay. Hey, we're recording this,
Oh my gosh. Okay. So is it Dennis or Joe that I need to pay?
It's too late.
Okay. Thanks so much, guys.
Okay, Breakfast with Friends. My suggestion is that you look the work of Rachel Bigsby. Rachel Bigsby. Bigsby. Technically, one thing that I like is that your focus is definitely on your subject. You used your aperture to fuzz this up a little bit, so to speak, to soften it as you step back a little bit, a little less, the sharpest of all. So that's good work there. Let's see, composition wise, your composition is split in half, but the weight is definitely heavier here than here. But yet, with all this space, this remains strong as well. So you might think, well, what's it a picture of? Is it the three birds? Is it one bird? You just have to look at the value. The lighter value here, a little darker, a little darker, a little softer, a little softer. That tells you. The reflection tells you. So good work with the composition actually there. Usually people say that an odd number is better. And you think, well, there's only 4 here. Well, there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 figures. And an odd number generally works better in design and in art. And really, you've got it here. So good composition again. The reflections look great. These birds in the back are triangulated, which is always a strong compositional tool, is a triangle. And here we have one with the curve of the water. Very, very nice. It's a touch lavender, which is just fine because that says that dusk is coming or dusk is there. You can see a little bit of warmth here, so it must be the sun must be down pretty low. Processing wise, it's really smooth and really crisp. It might be just a touch dark for me, but I realize that's the time of night that it was, and you don't want to lose this contrast here. So I understand that. As far as intangibles go, it's moody. It's calm, it's peaceful, it's like late evening. So good work there. Suggestions. I might lighten the bottom half a little bit so it comes forward a little. There's a spot right here. I know it's there for real because it's reflected off here, but I would get rid of it because it clashes a little bit with your reflection and with your value there. So I would remove that. Let's see. If you like how the bottom half looks, maybe a little darker on the top half to get a little more differentiation. But really, I think it looks good. I had also thought about maybe lightening this a little bit, but I'm not so sure. And again, that's why these are called suggestions. But I like the image. I like the composition. I like the differentiating between the smooth and the rough. I like the triangles here with the birds and the curve. So all in all, nice work. Who did this?
Sorry, that would be me, Mike. Thanks for the comments. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. Yeah, I mean, as far as the smoothness goes, that's just no noise AI inside of my editing software. So,
Pretty awesome,
which,
isn't it?
yeah, I mean, it works. Sometimes it makes things more uh soft than I would like, but yeah, it ultimately this was in the morning time, and I ended up at a place that I wasn't expecting to be, and the birds were there, and I had a 400 millimeter lens, so I was like, all right, there we go.
Yep.
So no serious story here, not like the last one.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Shenandoah Sunset. I might recommend that you look at the work of Candace Dyer. Candace Dyer, D-Y-E-R. Your exposure is on the button. Sunsets are always a hit, and you didn't overdo it. It looks like a sunset, not like somebody pumped up everything way to number 11, as they say. So good work there with some self-control. You still have a lot of detail, no blocking of blacks, which is really, really nice. I don't really see any burnouts, which is also very, very nice. Composition wise, you are using two large triangles here. You have this one and this one. So it's almost like a puzzle. Here's a long skinny one in between. And when we do this photography, I don't know about you, but I do not say to myself, I'm going to triangulate these birds, or I'm going to try. But when you get it back and you look and you think, oh, that's why it's good. That's why it's strong. Good balance from top to bottom. Let's see. The spread of the sky against the details of the trees is a real good contrast. The trees are busy and sharp and pointy and full of activity, and the sky is calm and spread and opening up. So it's really good differentiation there for sure. Color-wise, again, it's predominantly warm. It's really a warm image. That little skinny triangle is a cool area, which separates the two, and that's a big, big help. You have a yellow and purple complementary color. Have it down here as well. And you have orange and blue complementary colors. That always makes each of the colors stronger. The processing, as I said, looks good. Intangibles. Sunsets are a big hit, but they're a big hit for a reason, because they're beautiful. And you got it here. Very calm, very peaceful, very nice. Suggestions that I have. I would work on the bottom right corner. These are lighter values than almost anything else in the image. So I would just wipe those out, clone over them, or do something, or just even darken. As far as any other suggestions go, that's about it for me. Who did this one?
That's me, George. Mike, appreciate the comments.
Okay.
Taken near my daughter's house there in the mountains of Linden, Virginia.
Nice. Sunset, I'm guessing.
Oh yes, yes.
Hey,
It's,
great.
it's right near Skyline Drive.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 9 is Fish Finder. I've already mentioned some other landscape photographers, so I won't do that again. Technically, somebody took their time and worked on that horizon line, it looks like to me anyway. I didn't really feel the need to get a ruler out or anything like that. Your exposure is nice and a little bit leaning toward high key, which helps with the feeling of the fishermen and the people walking on the beach and the nice light. And so good choice there as far as your exposure goes. It's nice and sharp front to back. You can see the people in the very back, fishermen in the front, everybody on the side, nice and clear, very nice. Your composition is a great use of layers. Really nice. You have a layer here, a layer here, 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 and then a dark one and a light one and a dark one and a light one. That's one way to gain depth in your image is using alternating or at least alternative layers that have some contrast between them. So good work there. The curve of the water promotes calmness and peacefulness, as do horizontal lines. So very nice there. And you'll notice the fishing rod stands out against all those other calm, smooth, nice lines. The diagonal, which is from casting or reeling in, denotes he is active. He's actually fishing. I like this triangle down here. Again, triangulation is usually a good thing. Here's one up here. So beautiful composition, really. Color-wise, you did good to have it as light as you do. You did well with that. You have, of course, warm and cool, cool and warm, cool and warm, beautiful. And this yellow popping out. So good job there. And again, you'll notice where he's placed on one of the 1/3 lines over here. I know that it sounds hokey, but it does work. Let's see. The processing is excellent. Oh, I know. I wanted to mention the green here ties the green here. So it makes you tend to see the picture as a whole. And then you start, oh, there's somebody. So you get the story. Let me see. Suggestions. We have a half of a rock here. I would remove that. And also on the right edge, there's a half of something here. I would remove that. Some people would call it cheating. Maybe you'd like to try a sky replacement with just a few little clouds. Not a lot, just a few. But this is fine the way it is. But just for funsies, maybe you want to try that too. It's a beautiful, calm, relaxing image. You did a good job with this. Who is it?
Mike, hi, it's Rich Scar. Notice how quickly I responded because I don't have any money to pay you.
Good.
Knowing you were going to be the assessor, I made sure that horizon line was absolutely straight.
Perfect.
And I removed all the little any specks that I call Mikeys from it.
And
yeah.
did it not make a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. You're like a role model for us amateurs. Anyway, yeah, thank you for your comments. Yeah, I did a lot of I didn't do anything very much to the photo. whatever. I wrestled a little bit about what if I was going to remove something, whatever, and I came up as you did. Whatever. I think that it's balancing up. So yeah, and your comments are right. I got some half rocks in there. I'll throw those out. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Your exposure's beautiful. It's calm and sunny and really nice.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, and that's in Agunquit, Maine, by the way, if anybody wants to go there.
We all do. Okay. Number 10 is barbershop. I want you to look at a photographer named Jason Lanier, Lanier, and he is working on a project in New Orleans of abandoned things. It's called the Jazzland Project. Jason Lanier, the Jazzland Project. Now, technically wise, I'm going to take a guess here that the technical work here was an HDR, and that's just my guess because the window at the top is well exposed, the darkness in the corner is well exposed, and if it is an HDR, you made a good choice. If it's not an HDR, you made a tremendous exposure. Either way, you did well. It's exposed well, no hot spots. The border's a nice touch too. That looks good with this image. Very nice. The border picks up the gray on the walls there, so that was a good choice. Composition wise, the chair is a touch off center, which is absolutely perfect. You left some room at the bottom because there is a shadow there, so you didn't have the chair sitting on the bottom of the image, and that's good. You left a little space there. There's a little bit of linear perspective here. You can see that these lines point toward each other. Same with this. And eventually they'll have a vanishing point way out of the image somewhere, but it adds depth. You've seen The Last Supper. If you see The Last Supper again, pay careful attention to the linear perspective. It's tremendous. Tremendous. The windows even you can see it here how the lines work their way to a vanishing point way out somewhere out there. So nice work with the perspective in the composition. I also like that there's space above the chair because that reveals the light source. And also, I don't remember what this is actually, but it's part of the whole image and it repeats here. I don't remember what it is or what it does. Hopefully somebody will remember that. Let's see. The light and the chair are balanced with each other here and here. Of course, the red symbolizes a lot of things. The warm colors are all here except right here, which is kind of cool. But these I would consider warm colors in through here. They're oranges and browns, which is really a member of the orange family. And then this opposing color here. So very nice use of color. Everybody goes for the red and with good reason, but you also made the other colors important as well. Good job with the processing. The lighting is really, really nice. You did well with that. It's, as far as intangibles go, it's creepy. It's also a bit sad. The story is of all the people who sat in that chair and what their life must have been like and how sad it must have been. As far as any of my suggestions go, I might try just a little tiny glow if your software does a glow. Just a teensiest bit. Some people call that the Orton effect. There's also an Orton effect, which is one just a little bit out of focus image layered with one that is in focus, and then you get a different kind of effect. Maybe a tiny bit of that. or maybe just a little sharpness for the detail. But if you were looking for a more dreamy look, that's fine. One thing I might try is a little bit of contrast to try and get this to jump out a little bit from the rest. Now, I'm not saying make this neon red or anything like that, but maybe lighten it a little. And maybe just here. So give that a try, see what you think. Again, they are suggestions. So who did this one?
That's mine, Kurt.
Very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that is an HDR shot.
Okay.
I think I bracketed 5 exposures
Oh,
and
nice.
picked out the 3 or the 4 that I wanted to use out of that. It is down in Philly at the Eastern States Penitentiary, and that is kind of a sad story down there. That was an experiment, and it was experimental like solitary confinement, because everybody was put into separate units or cells.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't know how well that experiment went. Don't think it went well. And that is a fluorescent fixture there that's above the
Okay.
chair. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So I did a lot of graduated radio graduates, I guess you want to call it. And so the basic photo, I brought the exposure down, and then I used radial gradients then to bring up exposure values there to
Okay.
kind of get a little more contrast between the shadows and the highlights.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I like your suggestions, and thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's really kind of moving, that chair, you know it.
Yeah, and the other barbershop chair is as well. Doesn't have the red pop to the other one.
Yeah, that's a gray one, I think, right?
Yeah, the other one's gray. Yep.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Okay, watch number 4. Whoever did this, I'd tell you to look at the work of Kate Benson. She's a jewelry photographer. Kate Benson, Benson. Okay, technically, you've got gobs of detail, which is really important in something like this. Nice and sharp. I see that your lighting is doing pretty much what you wanted to, and that is make the watch come toward us. So good work there. Composition wise, the diagonal of the watch, I definitely like that. Of course, when you see watches everywhere, they're set for 10 minutes after 10, because, as my research tells me, somebody told me it's because it makes the watch look like it's smiling. Well, I couldn't find that anywhere. But what I did find is it's a very pleasing symmetry. And I had also heard, and this turns out to be true, it showcases the logo. Always showcases the logo because that's where they put them. You left plenty of breathing room around the watch, which is really good composition wise. So I like the diagonal. I like the room you left around the edge. Um, I debated on these white borders on each side, but not on top and bottom. But in a way, it's kind of cool because it makes it look like it's laying in a case. So I think I'm going to go with that. The purple color that you chose, we'll say, denotes royalty and luxury. So if you want the watch to look luxurious, that's a good choice of color. And here is a perfect example of a lighter value coming toward you and the darker values falling away from you. This is absolutely the perfect example. Processing. There are a few black areas that have no detail, although it's hard to tell on the screen, definitely. But I was looking here and here, and it might be that there is detail there, but like I said, it looks different on this on the screen, and it looks different on different people's screens too. So I like the purple filter, for lack of a better word, the purple tone. the lavender tone. I like that because, like I said, that denotes some luxury and some royalty. It's got a luxurious, classy feel. It's a good presentation for the watch. As far as any suggestions, um, and this is this has nothing to do with your photography, but if you're going to call this watch number 4, let the second hand go to the 4 and then take the picture. Then you'll have watch number 4. So, also maybe if you're fighting with these, maybe what you want to do is mask this, block it, and lay a lighter lavender filter over these white dots and see if that helps, or another layer. But if these are the sparkles you want, then let them alone. Don't touch them. Let's see. I think that's all I have for that is looking for, looking for detail in here. If you decide that you want to do something with that, you can lay a little layer of light lavender over that. But this is cool how it jumps, and I love your diagonal. But let it go to the 4. Is that you, Dave?
Yeah, it is, Mike. And watch number 3 didn't quite cut it. So
I understand.
You know, it's so interesting because I really thought black and white might work for me on this, and I just couldn't bring myself to you know, to do it. And those vacuous spaces, I kind of noticed that later, you know, like after I submitted it later, and I cloned some stuff in there and so on, and
okay,
it didn't do that much for me, but you know, it is something I thought about too. It looks a little bit empty, certainly up to the, you know, the northeast there.
Yeah.
The watch doesn't run, so all I had was the the hour and the, you know, the minute hands. I had no control over the second hand. I thought of taking it out, or maybe if I could have adjusted it. I like the 4, by the way, but I might have pointed it towards 7, maybe, or 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could have taken it out. I have a version with the second hand out, but it just,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it didn't do that much for me. So I ran for cover.
Good. Well, you also don't want it to be called watch number 3.2.
Yeah, right.
So,
Exactly.
okay.
The sort of white uprights just gave it some delineation in space, you know,
Yes.
vertically.
You're
And
right.
I thought that was pretty much where I needed to go with the, you know, with the border, rather than just, you know, kind of encase the whole thing.
Like I said, it looks like it's laying in a case, kind of.
Yeah. It's actually glass crystals all over the place. So it actually had some popping color for sure, because those crystals are all color. But I decided just to go with a, for me, higher contrast black and white. You gave me some great thoughts about a watch that I submitted for you to review, Mike, a few months ago, and I really tried to take those into consideration. And I'm glad you reviewed this for me. Thank you.
You can see how the face of it jumps right to us.
And you know, Mike, the last thing I would say, and maybe you have a comment on it, the face is this gorgeous mother of pearl. And try as I may, on the monitor, it just popped, you know, it looked like mother of pearl. And then when I processed it a little further like this, it lost all mother of pearlness. So I just left the sort of the bluish tinge on the face and the sort of the texture, you know, just the sort of like as a vestige. But that mother of pearl is just gorgeous, and I'm going to try to get it back.
Do it. Maybe while you have the mother of pearl, then then up your your color strength, your oh shoot, not the hue, the saturation. When you see it, maybe you want to pound it with saturation, because later maybe it'll back off then.
Oh, that's a great suggestion. I've done everything else to try to get it back. I will definitely try that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
try that. Okay, thank you. Okay, Night Bright. The photographer I am suggesting here is Tariq, Tarik, Tosun, Tosun. He does a lot of city night photography. Technically, this is absolutely clean and absolutely sharp. You can see detail in most of the dark areas. It's low in noise, which is great for a late night photograph. Composition wise, your use of rectangles is fantastic. The lower left, this little warm stretch picks up the warm over here, which is really nice. And here it ties it all together, as they say. Let's see. Excellent use of the tree shadows, which offset all of these shapes and angles with something more organic and more flowing. Of course, the rhythm that you see in here, the repeated shapes, is just absolutely great. It's completely graphic, except suddenly you have nature there. Color-wise, it's predominantly a cool cool color scheme, which relates to nighttime or coldness. But then again, suddenly there's some pop in here of warm. So good work with the juxtaposition of the warm and cool. The outside is the cool, the inside is the warm. Very cool. Very, very cool. Let's see. The processing, as I said, was beautiful. It's smooth. It looks like, and I could be wrong on this, so I'm not positive. It might be a long exposure. And I've seen this building, so I don't know if that's what's making the shadows look like that, or if the tree is moving, which is why I'm guessing a long exposure. I wanted to ask if there's any kind of detail over here. I'm not positive you need it, but I'd like to know if there is any, because there is a difference in how you prepare a print for people to view online or people to view as an actual physical print. Intangibles, it's beautiful, it's calm, but it's still a little bit spooky. Like the opening establishing shot in a murder mystery or something. So pretty cool. Let me see. Suggestions is just, I want to question this. And that's about it. Everything else I think looks really good. Who did this one?
I did. This is Mark.
That's pretty cool.
Well, thanks. Actually, this was kind of a this is the Rector Science Building at Dickinson.
Mm-hmm.
And I shot it a week ago. I was driving past it, went, oh, jumped out, took a picture, and jumped back in the car.
Wow.
I took several pictures, but anyway, it was actually shot at about a 60th of a second.
Okay.
And I had to pull up a lot on it to get any shadow detail back. And the color spot, you know, the color patch, the multicolor patch, just to the right here, sorry, to the left of the stairwell, it looks a little, the reason it looks, the tree that looks smudged is because of the sharpening. It was, I pulled it up so much, it was really noisy. So I'm thinking I'm going to go back and take a picture of it with a little more light and maybe do some bracketing. See if I can get a little more detail in there.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you. You notice things that I don't even see in the pictures. I mean, the thing with the complementary colors and the warm on the right and the warm on the left. I didn't see that. I just saw the graphic part.
Yeah. Well, the color helps. I mean, it's the overall story.
Well, I thought about doing it in black and white, but then it was like, well, that misses the whole point of this building.
Exactly. Right. And I see you did get a hold of detail up here.
Yeah, it did get
So
some.
it could very well be in here. I just can't see it on my monitor.
I don't think there's much over there, to be honest with you. I'd have to open up the image again. And like I said, I opened up the shadows and increased the exposure, but as much as I could before the noise became almost unbearable.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
I had to send it to Topaz to smooth it out a little bit. And that's where it got kind of fuzzy in the metal section.
Okay. It's pretty
But
cool.
Thanks for the comments.
You're welcome. Okay. Yoho, not Yoo-hoo, Yoho, which, believe it or not, is a national park in Canada. That's the real name of it. The photographer I'd like you to check out is a Canadian photographer. His name is Paul Zizka, Zizka, and he does Canadian national parks. That's his main thing. Technically, the exposure is really good, nice and crisp. There was another one that was done in this kind of lighter, not necessarily high key, but a lighter exposure, which gives you a feeling of sunshine and warmth, like we're not having now. The colors are strong. There's a little bit of a burnout here, but again, it could be my monitor. Composition wise, beautiful, beautiful S curves made by the water. You're coming down here and then you're curving back, and then part of it curves over here, and then you come back. There's S curves galore, and they're beautiful, they're calm, they're even in the land. And S curves are calming and nice. And you did a really good job with those. And they are clashing with the verticals, which makes each of them show up even more, just like complementary colors do. And the verticals, as we mentioned before, show strength and power. So the water is moving and changing colors, and the trees are remaining steadfast. So it's really a cool juxtaposition there. I like that. You know that the diagonal lines show activity, and you can see that in these diagonals here. Whereas these don't show much motion at all. These show calmness. That kind of thing really does work. Now, a person viewing your photograph will not say, oh, those S-curves make me feel so calm. But when they're looking at it, they'll be thinking, oh, this is really nice. Which is another way to say the same thing. Let's see. You use the foreground elements, which is really nice. The temptation is to forget all about that, but you didn't. You included a foreground element, which adds another layer. So we can work our way back through the layers. That is one way to provide depth. Let's see. Intangibles. Really, it's the feeling of being so small when you're in a situation like this. You just feel so tiny, like this will be here for thousands and thousands of years. I hope I will, but I'm not sure it's going to work out like that. So it's a matter of putting us in our place in a way. As far as suggestions go, one thing that I really would like you to get rid of are these tree stumps. I don't like the idea that somebody came there and cut trees down. So let's get rid of those. And then nobody will be any the wiser. Let's see. I said that there's a bit of color. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. This hotspot here, if it's like that on your computer, you can clone some very, very lightly, maybe 5% or so of a clone over this to just so when you print it, it'll throw a little ink on there. If you're going to print it. If you're not going to print it, then there's no real point because it'll look different on each person's monitor. I like this. If it's possible to allow a touch more room, if you have more space in your crop, rather than having it cut off so tight. Now, if this is the kind of thing where if you took 3 more steps back, you would be in the cold, freezing, glacial runoff water, then we don't want that. But I think that might help your composition a little bit if you had a little more of this. Again, that's the point of the color here. It's glacial runoff. So the warm and the cool. Perfect. The warm and the cool. The cool, beautiful job with the colors tonight. Let me see. I think that's all I have for that one. Who did this one?
This is Zach Bergman. Thanks for the compliments on that. Actually, to be honest, I think the spot that is blown out, there were actually, where I was standing, you can see there's a small pine on the bottom right-hand side. There were actually 2 pine trees sticking up right in front of me that I couldn't get around to get the composition I was looking for. So I used the AI to remove it, and it probably didn't have a whole lot to work with in that spot, but I can certainly look to AI or do as you said and clone some in. And this was actually a stitch of I think 3 or 4 vertical panoramic shots to get a nice wide view. So yeah, I was really happy how this one turned out in terms of that. But it did have to fill in a little bit with AI just to get some of the edges to expand. So I could probably use AI to take a step back, but it would all be interpreted.
Understood. Rather than you taking a step back. Good thinking.
Yeah.
Let's see. That's the end of our presentation here. 13 images. Thanks for the people who submitted. And please don't let any kind of fear stop you from submitting. Go for it. See what happens. And if some judge says it is terrible, just say that you're somebody else. Say, my name is Dennis Baker and this is my picture.
There you go. That'd be a good excuse.
Actually, like I said, go for it. Give it a shot. The only way to learn is to make mistakes, really.
Yeah, I would reinforce that. Certainly, if you haven't submitted an image lately, please consider doing so. We'd like to get some new people on board. And well, as we all know, Mike's very generous with his comments and doesn't have a cutting edge. So, Mike, nice job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone have any comments for Mike or any of the photographers who entered images tonight?
You did a great job. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
It's always nice to get Mike's references that he researches for us. You know, he just puts in that much more into his reviewing, and it's very much appreciated, Mike.
I'm glad. Thank you very much.
He just can't help giving homework.
I totally agree with that. I think that's really, really nice. Thank you, Mike.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, I agree too.
Absolutely.
Okay, if it's helpful, I'll try to keep doing it.
Thanks a lot, Mike. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, guys, any final comments?
Yeah, Dick Messner left a thank you on here, and you were very welcome, Dick.
Okay, very good.
Great images, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, thank everybody for participating tonight. Okay, I'll get an email out tomorrow morning with the follow-up, and then hope to see you on board on the 26th, the special meeting on Wednesday night. Okay, thanks a lot, guys, and good night.
Have a great night. Good night.
Thanks again, Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you. Cool watch.
Thanks again. You were gentle with me.
Well, now you know what to give a shot and see what you like.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.